Don't be dramatic, she's not allergic, my mother-in-law said, forcing the cake closer. My daughter whispered, Mom, I can't breathe right. I stood up. Then someone behind us said, Stop. I'm a doctor. I'm Rachel Donovan. I'm 35 years old. I work as a hospital scheduling coordinator, and I spend the rest of my time being the kind of mother who double-checks ingredient lists and keeps emergency contacts updated. I grew up in a household where we didn't have much, but we had structure. My parents taught me that responsibility wasn't flashy. It was quiet. It was showing up. It was noticing the small things before they became disasters. I married a man I love deeply, but our marriage has always had this invisible weight pressing down on it. His mother. She's the kind of woman who walks into a room and expects everyone to adjust. And for years, they did. My husband learned early that it was easier to go along than to push back. I understood that. I didn't blame him, but it made things hard. My daughter has had sensitivities since she was 3, nothing extreme but real. Certain food dyes made her break out in hives. Some preservatives triggered respiratory issues. I kept lists, I asked questions, I made sure she was safe. My mother-in-law treated all of it like theater. She'd roll her eyes when I mentioned it. She'd compare my daughter to her other grandchildren and say things like, Well, they eat everything. She never said I was a bad mother out loud. She just made sure I felt like one. I wasn't the daughter-in-law she wanted. I didn't come from money. I didn't dress like I stepped out of a magazine. I didn't laugh loud enough at her jokes or compliment her taste in Dacre. I was practical, I was steady. And to her, that made me boring. But here's what she didn't know. Boring people notice everything. We remember the details, we see the patterns. And when someone threatens our child, we don't ignore it. We document it. We prepare. And when the moment comes, we don't flinch. If you've ever felt judged by your partner's family, you're not alone. Subscribe and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to defend your child. Quiet parents often see the truth first. Click like or hype, and let's get into what really happened that day. I spent 2 weeks planning my daughter's 9th birthday party. She wanted something simple, streamers in her favorite colors, a playlist she helped pick, sandwiches cut into shapes. Cupcakes from a bakery I trusted because they listed every ingredient on their website. I booked a community center with big windows and enough space for kids to run around. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The morning of the party, I arrived early to set up. My husband helped me hang decorations while our daughter bounced around, too excited to sit still. By noon, kids started showing up. Parents dropped them off with smiles. Everything felt light. Then my mother-in-law walked in. She didn't say hello. She looked around the room with her lips pressed tight, like she'd just stepped into a garage sale. She set down a large bakery box on the gift table without asking. My husband saw it and tensed. I walked over. Hi, Linda, thanks for coming. She glanced at the cupcakes I'd arranged on a table near the window. You got those from where? A bakery downtown. They're safe for her. She made a small noise in her throat. I brought a real cake, from Anton's, you know, the place everyone actually goes to. I felt my stomach drop. Anton's used a specific buttercream that had triggered a reaction before. I'd told her, twice. We already have dessert, I said quietly. She waved me off. Don't be ridiculous, it's her birthday. She deserves something special. I wanted to say more, but guests were watching. I smiled and walked away. My husband pulled me aside near the kitchen. Just let her put it out. We don't have to serve it. She's going to push it, I said. She always does. He didn't argue, he just looked tired. The party went on. Kids played games. My daughter laughed so hard she snorted. For a while, I forgot about the cake. Then it was time to sing. I brought out the cupcakes, candles lit. My mother-in-law stood up before I could start. Wait, she said loudly. I brought the real cake, let's do this properly. She opened the box. The cake was massive, white fondant, elaborate piping. It looked like something from a wedding. The kids gasped. My daughter's face lit up for a second, then fell when she looked at me. I stepped forward. Linda, that's beautiful, but she can't eat that. Oh, stop, she laughed, actually laughed. You make such a fuss over nothing. One piece won't kill her. It's not about one piece, it's about what's in it. She turned to the room like I was the punchline. She's not allergic. Rachel just likes to be dramatic. My daughter's voice was so small. Grandma, I really can't. Linda crouched down in front of her, holding a plate with a thick slice. Sweetheart, your mom worries too much. This is from the best bakery in town, just try it, for me. I saw my daughter's hands start to shake. She looked at me. I shook my head. But Linda was louder. Everyone's watching, honey, don't be rude. My daughter took the plate. My husband finally moved. Mom, maybe we should. She's fine, Linda snapped. My daughter took a tiny bite. Then another because Linda was still watching. I saw it happen in stages. First, she scratched her neck. Then her breathing changed. Shallow, fast. She put the plate down and looked at me with wide, scared eyes. Mom, I can't breathe right. I grabbed her. The room went silent. Linda stood up, her face red. You're making a scene. She's fine. Then a man stepped forward from the crowd of parents. Older, calm, he looked right at Linda. Stop, I'm a doctor. The room froze. The man walked over to my daughter and knelt beside her. He checked her throat, listened to her breathing, and asked her questions in a voice that didn't panic. He told me to get her inhaler from my bag. I did. She used it. Slowly, her breathing evened out. He stood and looked at Linda. That was a real reaction. If it had progressed, we'd be calling an ambulance right now. Linda's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He turned to me. You did the right thing keeping her away from that cake. This wasn't dramatics, this was medical. I thanked him. My voice cracked. He nodded and stepped back into the crowd. The party didn't recover. Parents started gathering their kids. My daughter sat on a folding chair, staring at the floor. Linda grabbed her purse and left without a word. My husband stood there looking like he'd been hit. When everyone was gone, I sat next to my daughter and held her hand. She didn't cry. She just asked, "Why does Grandma think I'm lying?" I didn't have an answer. The room smelled like vanilla frosting and embarrassment. The decorations we'd hung so carefully that morning now felt like props in a scene I'd never wanted to be part of. I started cleaning up while my husband folded chairs in silence. My daughter helped me gather paper plates, moving slowly like she was still processing what had happened. One of the other mothers lingered by the door. She walked over and touched my arm. I saw everything, she said. You didn't do anything wrong. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She handed me her card. I'm a nurse. If you ever need someone to back you up, call me. I tucked the card into my pocket. I didn't know then how much I'd need it. We drove home in silence. My daughter fell asleep in the backseat. My husband stared out the window. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally spoke. She didn't mean it. I looked at him. Yes, she did. He didn't argue. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment my daughter looked at me with those scared eyes. The moment she struggled to breathe. The moment Linda dismissed it all like I was the problem. I got up and went to my laptop. I opened my email and started writing everything down. Every detail, every word. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed to remember. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Linda. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Rachel, I think we need to talk about yesterday. I'm concerned about how you handled things in front of all those people. Call me back. I deleted it. My husband saw my face. What did she say? She wants to talk about how I handled things. He sighed. Maybe you should call her, clear the air. I didn't respond. I just walked into the kitchen and made breakfast. My daughter came downstairs wearing her favorite pajamas. She climbed onto a stool at the counter and watched me crack eggs into a pan. Mom, do I have to see Grandma again? The question broke something in me. I turned off the stove and sat next to her. Not if you don't want to. I don't want to, I hugged her. Then you don't have to. My husband heard the conversation from the hallway. He didn't say anything, but I saw the conflict on his face. He loved his mother, but he loved us too. And for the first time, he was being forced to choose. Over the next few days, I started getting texts from family members. My sister-in-law asked if everything was okay. My husband's aunt sent a message saying Linda was upset. My brother-in-law's wife called to say she'd heard there was drama at the party. No one asked about my daughter. No one asked if she was okay. They just wanted to know if I was going to apologize. I ignored them all. Then, a week later, my husband came home from work looking stressed. Mom's hosting a barbecue this weekend. She invited everyone. I waited. She said we're welcome to come, but she thinks it's better if you and our daughter sit this one out. I felt the air leave my lungs. She uninvited us. She didn't uninvite you, she just thinks it might be easier if she uninvited us. He sat down and put his head in his hands. I don't know what to do. I stood up. You go. I'm not stopping you. Rachel, I'm serious. Go, be with your family, but we're not going to pretend this is okay. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. You're my family too. Then act like it. He went to the barbecue, alone. I spent the day with my daughter at the park. We got ice cream. We didn't talk about Linda. When my husband came home that night, he looked exhausted. How was it? I asked. Awful, he said. Everyone kept asking where you were. Mom said you weren't feeling well. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Of course she did. He sat next to me on the couch. I'm sorry. For what? For not standing up for you sooner. I didn't respond. I didn't have the energy. But something shifted that night. My husband started seeing what I'd been seeing all along, and I started planning. The next day, my phone started buzzing. Texts from my sister-in-law. Calls from my husband's aunt. All of them had heard Linda's version of the story. According to her, I had staged the whole thing. I'd embarrassed her in front of strangers on purpose. I'd turned her thoughtful gesture into a spectacle. My daughter was fine, Linda said. It was all in my head. My husband didn't defend me right away. He said we should give it time. Let it blow over. He said his mom was embarrassed and would calm down eventually. I wanted to believe him. But 2 weeks later, Linda hosted a family barbecue. Everyone was invited, except us. My husband found out from his brother. When he called his mom, she said, I just think it's better if Rachel and the girls sit this one out. They're too sensitive for family events right now. That was the word she used. Sensitive, like caring about my daughter's safety was a personality flaw. My husband was hurt, but he still didn't push back. He said we'd go to the next one. Prove things were fine. I didn't say anything. I just wrote it down. A month later, there was a dinner at Linda's house. My husband convinced me to go. He said it would help. That showing up would smooth things over. I agreed, reluctantly. We sat at her long dining table with his siblings and their families. Conversation was stiff at first. Then Linda brought out dessert, a layered trifle. She set it down in front of my daughter with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This one's safe, she said. I made sure. My daughter looked at me. I checked the ingredients Linda listed. It seemed fine. My daughter took a small serving. Then Linda turned to the table and laughed. You should have seen Rachel at the birthday party. Acting like a slice of cake was going to kill her. People chuckled. Uncomfortable, but they did. I felt my face go hot. My husband put his hand on my knee under the table. A warning. I stayed quiet. Linda kept going. I mean, I've raised 4 kids. I think I know what's dangerous and what's not. I looked down at my plate. I didn't finish my food. When we left that night, I sat in the car and made a decision. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The drive home was tense. My husband tried to make excuses. He said his mom was just trying to lighten the mood. That she didn't mean anything by it. I didn't respond. When we got home, I went straight to my office. I pulled up the texts Linda had sent me over the past year. I read through them carefully. There were more than I remembered. Messages where she'd dismissed my concerns about food. Messages where she'd compared my daughter to her other grandchildren and found her lacking. Messages where she'd called me paranoid. I took screenshots of every single one. Then I opened a new document and started writing. I wrote down every incident, every comment, every time she'd made me feel small, every time she'd put my daughter at risk. I organized it by date. I kept my language clear and factual. No emotion, just events. When I finished, it was past midnight. My husband was already asleep. I sat in the dark, staring at the document on my screen. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining things, that this wasn't all in my head. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming. I started small. I reached out to the community center where we'd held the party. I asked if they kept security footage. The manager said they kept it for 90 days. I asked for a copy of the footage from the party. She asked why. I told her there had been a medical incident and I wanted to have a record. She didn't ask any more questions. She sent me a link to download the file. I watched it that afternoon while my daughter was at school. Seeing it again, from a distance, was different. I could see Linda's face clearly. The determination, the dismissiveness, the way she'd leaned over my daughter holding that plate like a weapon. I could see my daughter's reluctance. The fear in her eyes, the way she'd looked to me for help. And I could see the moment the doctor stepped in, the authority in his posture, the way the room changed when he spoke. I saved the video in 3 different places. I wasn't going to lose it. That evening, I did something I'd been putting off. I looked up the doctor who'd helped us. His name had been mentioned by one of the other parents. Dr. Eugene Marsh, pediatric specialist. I found his practice online and sent an email through the contact form. I explained who I was. I thanked him for stepping in at the party, and I asked, very carefully, if he'd be willing to provide a statement about what he'd witnessed. I didn't expect a response. But the next morning, there was a reply in my inbox. He remembered us. He said he'd been thinking about that day. He said he'd be happy to help. We arranged to meet for coffee. When I walked into the cafe, he was already there. He stood when he saw me and shook my hand. We sat down and he got straight to the point. "What your mother-in-law did was dangerous," he said. "Not just medically, but psychologically. Pressuring a child to ignore her own body's signals, that creates lasting harm." I nodded. He continued. "I've seen cases where repeated dismissal of a child's medical needs leads to serious consequences. Sometimes it's a worsening of the condition. Sometimes it's the child learning not to speak up when something's wrong." He paused. "Your daughter was scared that day, not just of the reaction. Of disappointing her grandmother." I felt tears prick my eyes. He reached across the table and tapped the table gently. "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." I asked if he'd be willing to put that in writing. He said yes. A week later, I had a signed letter from Dr. Marsh. It outlined what he'd observed. It explained the medical risk. It confirmed that my daughter's reaction had been real and potentially serious. I added it to my growing file. My husband noticed I was spending more time on my laptop. He asked what I was working on. I told him I was organizing photos. He didn't push, but I think he knew. Around that same time, I reconnected with Diane from work. She'd heard bits and pieces of what had happened. One day at lunch, she asked me directly, "Are you okay?" I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "My son almost died because my mother-in-law didn't believe his peanut allergy was real," she said. "She gave him a cookie with peanut butter in it. Told him it was fine. He ended up in the ER. I stared at her. "What did you do?" I cut her off completely. My husband supported me. "It took him a while, but he got there." She looked at me seriously. "You're collecting evidence. That's smart, but you need to be ready to use it. And when you do, don't apologize, don't soften it. Just let the truth sit there." I nodded. She helped me refine my timeline. We went through the screenshots together. She pointed out patterns I hadn't fully noticed. The escalation. The way Linda tested boundaries. The way she framed me as the problem to isolate me from support. "She's been doing this for years," Diane said. "And she's good at it, but she's sloppy too." She left a trail. By the end of our conversation, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was a mother protecting her child. And I had everything I needed to prove it. Over the next few weeks, Linda's behavior escalated. She posted photos on social media from family gatherings we weren't invited to. She made comments on my husband's posts, little digs that seemed innocent to outsiders but stung. She sent a group text about Thanksgiving plans. Everyone was included, except me. My husband saw it. He confronted her. She said it was an accident, that she must have missed my contact. He didn't believe her, but he didn't know what to do. I did. I told him I'd go to Thanksgiving. He looked surprised. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said, but I'm bringing something. What? I didn't answer. The truth was, I'd been waiting for the right moment, a public moment. A moment where Linda felt safe and in control. Thanksgiving was perfect. What Linda didn't know was that I'd been collecting pieces. The day after the birthday party, I went back to the community center. I asked the manager if they had security footage from that afternoon. They did. I requested a copy. They gave it to me on a USB drive. I also went through my text messages, months of exchanges with Linda. I found 3 where she explicitly dismissed my daughter's condition. One where she said, "Kids today are too coddled. A little sugar never hurt anyone." I screenshotted them. I saved them in a folder. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to the doctor from the party. I'd gotten his name from another parent. I sent him a polite email explaining the situation. I asked if he'd be willing to clarify what happened if it ever came up again. He responded the same day. He said he'd seen cases like this before, that dismissing a known sensitivity was dangerous. That he'd be happy to speak to the medical reality if needed. I didn't tell my husband. Not yet. I wasn't ready to fight, but I was ready to protect. And I knew the next time Linda tried to humiliate me, I wouldn't be empty-handed. The video footage was clearer than I expected. The camera angle captured the entire dessert table. I could see Linda's face, the determination, the condescension. I could see my daughter's fear. The moment she started to react, the moment the doctor intervened, I watched it 5 times. Each time I felt more certain, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. Linda had been testing boundaries for years, small comments, little dismissals. And I'd absorbed them all because I thought keeping the peace mattered more than being right. But this crossed a line. This wasn't about me. It was about my child. I burned the video onto a second USB drive and kept one at home and one in my car. I printed the text messages and put them in a folder. I added the letter from Dr. Marsh. Then I made a timeline. A simple document that laid out every incident over the past 3 years. Doctor's appointments where Linda had questioned diagnoses. School events where she'd undermined my parenting. Family dinners where she'd made jokes at my expense. I wasn't angry anymore. I was methodical. At work, Diane checked in with me regularly. She'd been through something similar. Her son's allergy was severe. Her mother-in-law had almost killed him by ignoring it. You know what the hardest part was? Diane said one afternoon. Realizing my husband had been trained his whole life not to challenge her. It wasn't that he didn't love us. It's that he didn't know how to break the pattern. I thought about that a lot. My husband wasn't a bad person. He was caught between 2 worlds, and Linda had spent decades building hers. I started preparing him slowly. I'd mention small things. Your mom said something interesting at dinner last week. Did you notice how she phrased that text? I wasn't trying to turn him against her. I was trying to help him see. And slowly, he started to. One night, he came home from a lunch with his brother. They were talking about the birthday party, he said. What did they say? My brother said Mom's been telling people you exaggerated the whole thing, that the doctor was a friend of yours. I looked up. The doctor was a stranger. He stepped in because he saw a medical emergency. I know, my husband said, but that's not what she's saying. What are you going to do about it? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I don't know. That's when I knew he wasn't going to fix this. I was. Linda kept pushing. She started calling my husband at work, asking why we were being distant, suggesting we were turning our daughter against her. She played the victim beautifully, and for a while, it worked. Other family members started reaching out, asking if everything was okay. Suggesting maybe I was holding a grudge. I stayed quiet. I didn't defend myself. I just kept adding to the file. Then Linda made a mistake. She sent a group email to the extended family. The subject line was family unity. In it, she talked about how important it was to forgive and move on. She said some people hold on to hurt instead of choosing peace. She didn't name me. But everyone knew. My husband read it and looked sick. She's making this worse. She's showing everyone who she is, I said. Let her. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Linda called me directly. I answered, Rachel, I think we need to clear the air, she said. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. I'd like that, I said. I never meant to upset you at the party. I was just trying to do something nice. I didn't respond, and I think maybe you've been under a lot of stress. I understand. Parenting is hard. It is, I said evenly. So let's just put this behind us. Come to Thanksgiving, bring your daughter, we'll start fresh. We'll be there, I said. She sounded relieved. Wonderful. I'm so glad. She had no idea what was coming. The week before Thanksgiving, I contacted Dr. Marsh again. I asked if he'd be willing to attend a family dinner. Not as a guest, as a witness. He hesitated. That's unusual. I know, I said, but I need someone who can speak to the medical facts, someone they can't dismiss. He thought about it. Then he said, I'll come. But only if you're sure this is what you want. I'm sure. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell anyone. I just confirmed with Dr. Marsh that he'd arrive halfway through the meal. I sent him the address. The night before Thanksgiving, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my daughter, about the fear in her eyes that day. About every time she'd been made to feel like her needs were inconvenient. I thought about all the times I'd stayed quiet, all the times I'd smiled through Linda's comments, all the times I'd let her rewrite reality. I was done. The next morning I got dressed. I picked out a simple outfit, nothing flashy. I helped my daughter into her favorite dress. My husband was nervous, I could see it. Are you sure about this? He asked. I'm sure. We drove to Linda's house in silence. When we arrived, the driveway was already full. The whole family was there. Linda opened the door with a wide smile. Rachel, I'm so glad you came. I smiled back. Wouldn't miss it. We walked inside. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing. The dining table was set for 20 people. My daughter stayed close to me. We made small talk. I helped in the kitchen. I acted like everything was fine, and Linda believed it. She thought she'd won. The pediatric doctor's name was Dr. Eugene Marsh. He'd been practicing for 30 years. He'd seen allergic reactions in every form. When we met for coffee, he didn't sugarcoat it. What your mother-in-law did was reckless, he said. Even if the reaction had been mild, the pressure she put on your daughter to eat something she knew was unsafe. That's where the real harm starts. He explained that repeated exposure could worsen sensitivity over time. That emotional stress around food could cause long-term anxiety. That my daughter's reluctance to speak up in that moment was a learned response to being dismissed. I recorded parts of our conversation, with his permission. He also agreed to provide a written statement if I ever needed it. I didn't know if I would, but I felt stronger knowing I could. At work, I confided in a coworker named Diane. She had a son with a severe peanut allergy. She'd fought her own battles with family members who didn't take it seriously. She understood in a way most people didn't. You're not overreacting, she told me one afternoon in the break room. You're underreacting if anything. This isn't about cake. It's about control. She helped me organize my evidence. We made a timeline. We labeled screenshots. We outlined the pattern of dismissal and public humiliation. Diane said, when you're ready, you'll know. And when you show them, don't apologize, don't soften it, just let the truth sit there. Meanwhile, Linda grew bolder. She posted on social media about family gatherings we weren't part of. She made passive-aggressive comments on my husband's photos. She sent group texts to the family about upcoming events and left me off the thread. She thought she'd won, that I'd either fade into the background or leave entirely. What she didn't realize was that I was waiting. A holiday dinner was coming up, Thanksgiving at Linda's house. My husband wanted us to go. He said it was important. That skipping it would make things worse. I agreed to go. But this time, I came prepared. In the days leading up to Thanksgiving, I rehearsed what I'd say. I practiced keeping my voice steady. I went over the evidence again and again, not because I doubted it, but because I needed to be ready for every possible response. Linda would deny, she'd cry, she'd make herself the victim. I needed to stay calm through all of it. Diane helped me prepare. We role-played difficult scenarios. She'd play Linda, throwing out accusations and deflections. I'd practice responding with facts. "You're angry," she'd say, pretending to be Linda. "I'm protective," I'd respond. "You're making a scene." "I'm telling the truth." "You're turning the family against me." "I'm showing them what really happened." By the end of our practice sessions, I felt ready, not excited. Not eager, just ready. I also prepared my daughter. I sat her down and explained that Thanksgiving might be uncomfortable, that grandma might get upset, that some people might not understand right away. "Are you going to yell?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm just going to show them the truth." "Will they believe you?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I need to try," she hugged me. "I believe you." That was enough. Dr. Marsh and I coordinated carefully. He'd arrive at 1 o'clock, halfway through the meal. He'd park down the street and wait for my text. When the moment was right, I'd message him. He'd come to the door, I'd introduce him, and he'd back up everything I was about to say. The night before Thanksgiving, my husband asked me if I was okay. "You've been quiet," he said. "I'm fine. You seem like you're planning something." I looked at him. "I'm planning to protect our daughter." He didn't ask any more questions, but I saw the worry in his eyes. The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke up early. I made coffee. I reviewed my notes one last time, then I deleted them from my phone. I didn't need them anymore. I knew what I was going to say. I got dressed. I helped my daughter pick out her outfit. I packed the USB drive, the printed screenshots, and Dr. Marsh's letter in my purse. My husband came downstairs looking nervous. "We don't have to go," he said. "Yes, we do." We drove in silence. My daughter played a game on her tablet in the back seat. My husband gripped the steering wheel too tight. I stared out the window and felt nothing but certainty. When we pulled up to Linda's house, I took a deep breath. This was it. We walked inside. The house was warm. The smell of food filled the air. Linda greeted us with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Rachel, you look lovely." "Thank you, Linda." We moved into the living room. My husband's siblings were there, their spouses. Their kids, Linda's sister, a few cousins, everyone was talking and laughing. My daughter stayed close to me. I made small talk. I complimented someone's sweater. I asked about someone's job. I acted normal, and Linda relaxed. She thought this was going to be easy. At 12:30, we sat down for dinner. The table was crowded. I ended up between my daughter and my sister-in-law. My husband sat across from me. Linda sat at the head of the table, presiding over everything. We passed dishes. We filled plates. Conversation flowed. Linda told a story about my husband when he was young. Everyone laughed. Then she looked at me. "Rachel, you're so quiet. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. She smiled. "Good. I'm glad we could all be together." 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Marsh. "I'm here," I texted back. "Give me 5 minutes." I waited. I ate a few bites. I listened to the conversation. Then Linda brought up the birthday party. She didn't address me. She just mentioned it casually. "You know, I was thinking about that party back in September." It's funny how things get blown out of proportion. A few people nodded. My sister-in-law looked uncomfortable. Linda continued. "I brought a beautiful cake and Rachel thought I was trying to hurt her daughter. Can you imagine?" She laughed. A couple people chuckled nervously. My husband stared at his plate. I set down my fork. "Linda, can I show everyone something?" The table went quiet. Linda frowned. "Show what?" I pulled out my phone. "Just a short video from the party." Linda's smile faltered. "I don't think that's necessary." "I do." I connected my phone to the TV in the adjacent room. Linda had a smart TV. It took me 30 seconds. Everyone turned to look. I pressed play. The footage was clear. It showed Linda walking up with the cake. It showed me saying no. It showed her dismissing me in front of everyone. It showed her pressuring my daughter. It showed my daughter's face as she took the first bite, her hand going to her throat, her breathing changing, the fear. And then it showed Dr. Marsh stepping in. The room was completely silent. I let the video play to the end, then I paused it. "That's what really happened," I said. Linda's face went red. "You recorded me. The community center has security cameras." I requested the footage. My sister-in-law looked stunned. My brother-in-law stared at the screen. Linda stood up. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to embarrass me." I pulled out my phone again. "I also have text messages from you where you dismissed my daughter's condition, where you called me paranoid, where you said I was coddling her." I read them aloud, every single one. My voice didn't shake. When I finished, I looked at her. "And I have a letter from the doctor who helped us that day. He's a pediatric specialist. He witnessed everything. And he confirmed that what happened was a real medical emergency." Linda opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Then I texted Dr. Marsh. "Come in." 30 seconds later, the doorbell rang. My husband looked at me, confused. I stood up and answered it. Dr. Marsh stood on the porch. I led him into the dining room. "Everyone, this is Dr. Eugene Marsh. He's the doctor from the video." The room stared. Dr. Marsh nodded. "I was at the birthday party, I saw what happened, and I want to be very clear. That child had a real, measurable physical reaction to something in that cake. It wasn't exaggerated. It wasn't staged. If it had continued, we would have been looking at a hospital visit." He looked at Linda. "Pressuring a child to eat something that poses a known risk isn't love. It's dangerous. And dismissing a parent's concerns about their child's health isn't harmless. It undermines trust and puts the child at risk." Linda's hands were shaking. "This is insane." "You're all insane." My husband stood up. For the first time in years, he looked at his mother with something other than deference. "Mom, this has to stop." She turned to him. "You're taking her side?" "I'm taking our daughter's side." The room stayed silent. Linda looked around, searching for support. No one met her eyes. My sister-in-law looked down. My brother-in-law stared at his plate. Linda's sister shook her head slowly. Linda had controlled this family for decades. She'd shaped the narrative. She'd decided who was right and who was wrong. And in one moment, that power crumbled. She grabbed her purse and walked out. The door slammed behind her. No one followed. My husband sat back down. He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't do that sooner." I nodded. Dr. Marsh excused himself quietly. I walked him to the door and thanked him. He smiled. "You did the right thing." After he left, the room slowly came back to life. People started talking, quietly at first, then more openly. My sister-in-law came over and hugged me. "I saw her do things like that before," she said. "I just never knew how to say anything." My brother-in-law apologized. "I thought you were overreacting. I'm sorry." One by one, people approached. Some apologized. Some just acknowledged what they'd seen. And my daughter, who'd been sitting quietly the whole time, looked up at me and smiled. We arrived at Linda's house just before noon. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air. The dining table was set with her best dishes. My daughter stayed close to me. She'd been anxious all morning. My husband tried to act normal, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Linda greeted us at the door. She hugged my husband. She smiled at my daughter. She looked at me and said, "Rachel, glad you could make it." We sat in the living room with the rest of the family. Small talk, football on the TV. My daughter played with her younger cousins in the corner. Dinner was called. We moved to the table. I sat between my daughter and my husband. Linda sat at the head. Midway through the meal, Linda started talking about the birthday party. She didn't address me directly. She just spoke to the table. "You know, I still can't believe how that day turned out. I brought a beautiful cake, and Rachel acted like I was trying to poison her child." A few people chuckled. My sister-in-law looked down at her plate. "I mean, I've been a mother longer than anyone here. I think I know what's safe." My daughter's hand found mine under the table. I squeezed it. Then I spoke. My voice was calm, even. "Linda, can I show everyone something before we finish?" The table went quiet. My husband's eyes went wide. Linda frowned. "Show what?" I pulled out my phone. I connected it to the TV in the next room using the screen mirroring feature I'd tested that morning. "Just a short video," I said. "From the party." I pressed play. The footage was clear. The camera had caught the whole moment. Linda walking up with the cake, me saying no, her dismissing me, her pressuring my daughter in front of everyone, my daughter's face as she took the first bite. Her hand going to her throat, her breathing changing, the fear in her eyes. Then Dr. Marsh stepping in. The room was silent. I let the video finish. Then I paused the screen. Doctor. Marsh stood up from his seat. He'd been sitting at the far end of the table the whole time. I'd invited him. Linda didn't know. "I'm the doctor in that video," he said. "And I want to be very clear about what happened that day. That child had a real, physical reaction to something in that cake. It wasn't staged. It wasn't exaggerated. If it had continued, we would have been looking at a hospital visit." He looked at Linda. "Pressuring a child to eat something that poses a known risk isn't love. It's dangerous." Linda's face went white, then red. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I pulled up the text messages next. I read them aloud. The ones where she called me dramatic. The ones where she said my daughter was coddled. The ones where she dismissed every concern I'd ever raised. My voice didn't shake. When I finished, I looked at her. "I didn't make a scene that day. You did, and I'm not going to let you rewrite what happened to make yourself feel better." My husband stared at me, then at his mother. Then he did something I'd been waiting years for. He spoke. "Mom, this has to stop." Linda tried to argue. She said I was twisting things, that I was being cruel. She looked around the table for support. My brother-in-law looked away. My sister-in-law stared at her plate. Linda's sister, who'd always backed her up, shook her head slowly. "Linda, I think you need to listen." Linda stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. "This is my house. And that's my daughter," I said, "and I won't let you hurt her again." Linda grabbed her purse. She walked to the door. She stopped and turned. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I won't." She left. The door slammed. No one followed her. The table sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then my daughter squeezed my hand. "Mom, can we go home?" I looked at my husband. He nodded. We stood up. My sister-in-law stopped us at the door. "Rachel, I'm sorry. I should have said something before." I hugged her. "It's okay." My brother-in-law walked over. "I didn't know it was that bad." "Now you do," I said. We drove home in silence. My daughter fell asleep in the back seat. My husband reached over and held my hand. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For being stronger than I was." I didn't respond. I just looked out the window. When we got home, I helped my daughter into bed. She hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you, Mom." I kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you too." That night, my husband and I sat on the couch. He looked exhausted. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we set boundaries," I said. "Real ones. What if she doesn't respect them? Then she doesn't see us." He nodded slowly. "I can live with that." Over the next few days, my phone buzzed constantly. Family members reaching out. Some apologized. Some asked what happened. Some took Linda's side. I responded to the ones who mattered. I ignored the rest. Linda sent a long email. She said I'd humiliated her, that I'd turned the family against her, that she'd never forgive me. I deleted it. A week later, my husband's brother called. "Mom wants to talk," he said. "She's not ready," I said. "Maybe not," he admitted. "But she's listening now." That was enough for me. My daughter started sleeping through the night again. She stopped flinching when people offered her food. She laughed more, and I realized something. Protecting her had never required me to be loud. It just required me to be clear, to trust what I knew, to stand firm even when no one else would. In the weeks that followed, things shifted. Linda stopped hosting every holiday. Other family members started speaking up about moments they'd stayed quiet through. My husband set boundaries, real ones. He told his mother that if she wanted to see our daughter, it would be on our terms, with respect, with acknowledgement of what had happened. Linda didn't like it, but she didn't have a choice. My daughter started sleeping better. She stopped flinching when people offered her food. She laughed more, and I realized that protecting her had never required me to be loud. It just required me to be clear, to trust what I knew, to stand firm even when no one else would. The truth is always stronger than control. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who's been paying attention the whole time. If someone ever dismissed your child's needs or embarrassed you in front of others, you know how heavy that feels. Share your story below so others know they're not alone. Subscribe if you believe protecting your family should never require an apology. Your experience matters here. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of our community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. You're not alone in this, and your voice matters more than you think.